So committee members, here we are. It's 8:15 in the evening. We started our day together at 8:15 a.m. So let's just do part two. And we are not going to make a habit out of meeting every 12 hours. I will promise you I will do my best not to do that. So with that, this evening, I think what we need to do in order to make sure that the appropriate bills get in the right spot at the time, we have an assembly bill that was referred to us. It was not agendized, but those rules have been waived at this moment. There was notice that we did have control of the bill. It was removed from legislative operations. It was brought to Ways and Means. We were waiting for the amendment. The amendment came out this morning after today's agenda had already been posted, but because it is an AB bill and there is a time crunch, we need to address that bill this evening to make sure that it gets processed and get to the floor.
She told me that she let me know.
So with that, I believe we have the appropriate people in the room. I apologize that the Chair of Legislative Operations isn't here. She's in another committee presenting. But we do have a representative from the Ethics Commission, and I believe we also have Mr. Powers available, if need be, to walk us through this bill. So with the time constraints that we have, I believe that is the first bill that we're going to consider this evening so that we can make sure as an AB it moves forward. So that would be AB 65. We'll go ahead and open up the hearing on AB 65. We do have a proposed amendment, which is number 777 to the bill. If I could ask the Commission on Ethics to give us a high-level overview of the bill, and then I'll ask Mr. Powers to address the amendment, and we'll talk about them both together and ask our questions then so that we can have a comprehensive conversation. The amendment may address some of the concerns that the members have. So with that, if our representative from the Commission can go ahead and give us our overview, please. Thank you. I believe you're muted.
This is broadcast. We are working on it on our end. Please stand by.
Thank you.
Ms. Chase, can you please go ahead? You should be able to be heard by the committee.
Oh, thank you very much. This is Tracy Chase. I am Commission Counsel for the Nevada Commission on Ethics. I want to thank Madam Chair and the committee for considering our bill this evening. Our bill basically is a bill that presents a lot of streamlining on behalf of the Commission. It goes through our processes from beginning to end, and it provides additional due process, and it provides whistleblower protection to those public officers and those public employees that are entitled to have their identity protected under the ethics law. The bill has been heard before the Assembly Committee, and it also was headed to a workshop, and then it was redirected to you. I believe that's based upon the amendment. The Commission has already agreed to 2 amendments to the bill, and I don't see that in the amended bill, so I wanted to highlight those for the record. Section 8 adds an exclusion. We agreed to add an exclusion for any public attorney representing the subject of an ethics complaint, so they would not have a duty basically to cooperate with the Commission because their duty is to their client and their representation. The other one is Section 22, and in that section, it originally was drafted as the executive director had to be an attorney, and the Commission, based upon the indications from the Assembly Committee, determined that we're fine if the executive director is not an attorney. Basically, the bill, it has a lot of definitional sections at the front and is correcting those. And it revises NRS 281A 400 to include an additional code of conduct for a gross or unconscionable abuse of process. By way of background, the Commission received a number of cases over the years, and we have dismissed them based upon a lack of jurisdiction because the allegations at issue did not relate to a subject's pecuniary interests or a commitment in a private capacity, as those terms are defined in the ethics law. And this expansion of NRS 281A 400 has been reviewed by LCB to make sure it's constitutional, and it would capture that very high-level unconscionable conduct. In addition, there is a requirement in Section 11 that institutes a requirement that's consistent with already imposed duties that the Secretary of State has for government entities. And I wanted to highlight this because it's the subject of the fiscal note on the bill. And what it does is there is currently no mechanism for the Commission to check and secure compliance with our ethics acknowledgement forms. The Commission receives from all public officers, whether appointed or elected, that's under its jurisdiction, an acknowledgement form that they have read and understand the application of the ethics law to their public duties. But there's no way the Commission had to make sure that we were getting the forms to the right people, or that there was to secure other compliance for the acknowledgement forms. And what this does is institute a requirement on the government entities to provide us a list of their public officers and public employees, not public employees, public officers, whether elected or appointed. And that is the same list that they provide to the Secretary of State. In addition, you'll see a lot of language clarification. Part of the bill, Section 21, is really important to the Commission because it establishes a mediation and a settlement process that's consistent with a court case that was going through the system. For example, we have basically 3 phases of our ethics complaint cases. The first phase is a jurisdictional and the investigative phase. And then there's a review panel, a 3-member panel of the Commission who reviews the case to determine whether there's just and sufficient cause for the case to go to the full Commission for further proceedings. If that occurs, those 3 members of that panel aren't able to participate in the adjudication before the Commission. And this bill really helps us out because it establishes a mediation and settlement program where we can, in confidentiality, meet with the parties and have one of those commissioners that served on the panel to assist us in a settlement negotiation. Much like a court, we'll use another judge to assist in resolution of cases. I'm just trying to get to the highlights because I know how busy the committee is. The bill also on Section 28, it permits the Commission to accept requests for advice as a referral on behalf of the public officer or public employee from the entity itself. And that would really assist us in providing guidance on the application of the ethics law. Section 29 clarifies the policy provisions of the limited use exception. And what that applies to is NRS 281A 400 subsection 7 makes it improper for a government officer or a public employee to use government property and resources unless it falls within a limited use exception. The small change in this area basically is if a public entity has a policy that allows the use, the change in the law just requests that that use policy be in writing before the conduct in question. Section 31 clarifies NRS 281A 420. So it does not require the disclosure now of otherwise confidential information if the disclosure is made on a non-confidential matter and the public officer recuses themselves from that item that they are considering. That's helpful because if we have public officers who are also lawyers or something like that, they may have confidential information, or accountants. The chair of the Commission is an accountant, so this was an important provision that assists both our public officers when they do have conflicts to not have to disclose that confidential information that would not be disclosed otherwise under law. Let's see. In section 33, consistent with the feedback from the legislatures on the cooling off prohibitions, the cooling off provisions under the ethics law are a restriction for 1 year after leaving public service to be privately employed with an agency contract vendor. And what the bill does, it just brings that up to a higher level. Before, every public employee that was above a clerical error would be subject to the law, but now it brings it up to certain management level employees. Section 35 allows the commission to gather additional information when we receive a request for an advisory opinion. Advisory opinions are the main function of the commission in rendering preventative advice to public officers and public employees. And in doing so, we only have a 45-day deadline to render that advice once they file the request. However, like any request, the person seeking the information and the guidance from the commission may not have put together all the facts that the commission needs to properly and reasonably render an opinion. What this does is it allows the commission to gather additional information, and it also will extend or toll that 45-day period until the information is received. Section 36, along with granting additional time, does provide statutory discretion for the commission to grant appropriate extensions, which are based upon good cause and which must have defined deadlines in their establishment. Examples of good cause are emergency situations, such as the COVID pandemic we've had in the last year, family medical leave, or vacancies in positions. It's very difficult when you're a very small agency like us to meet very short timelines without the ability to extend those for good cause. In addition, it allows us to stay advisory opinions when we receive an ethics complaint on the same subject matter, because the ethics complaint itself is more of a process that has representation and it is not unilateral. Advisory opinions are unilateral, only based upon the subject's information provided to the commission, but a complaint case, there's full due process establishment with the complaints, and they're entitled to be represented by a lawyer, and they can basically, the ethics complaint is a party system where just like a court case. In addition, really importantly, on section 36 of the bill, it establishes a process for us to provide informal advice to our public officers and public employees. The informal advice is very handy. We often get questions on the phone from our public officers about a meeting that's coming up that day or the next day. And the advisory opinion process is a much more formal process and takes time to complete those opinions on behalf of the commission. And this would allow the commission counsel or the executive director to provide limited advice to the requester so that they have somewhere where they believe that they can actually, perform their duties with some advice from the commission as a body. In doing so, we cannot extend commission precedent or change the opinions issued by the commission, and there's an appeal mechanism to the commission if there's a concern. In addition, section 38 basically indicates that the commission will hold its hearings on ethics complaint in public, but we're not subject to the notice requirements of the open meeting law. Most of the commission's proceeding at this time are not subject to the open meeting law requirements. So, that has had no concerns from stakeholders to us. And I think that it would really help us in functioning, especially because our short deadlines. We have a 60-day deadline to actually put the adjudicatory hearing together unless there is a waiver from the subject. And in that case, to comply with long notice requirements under the open meeting law was becoming problematic. is sections 41 through 42 allow the ability of the commission to conduct a preliminary investigation back at the jurisdictional stage. Oftentimes, we will get a request for a complaint and there's very limited facts, but there's a public record out there that we could take a look at to see if there's enough information to determine whether or not there's enough evidence to substantiate the commission taking jurisdiction over that matter. Again, section 43 authorizes the presiding officer to grant good cause extensions, which have to have a reasonable deadline set and would be subject, just like the court. If there's good cause presented, extensions could be granted. And this goes both ways. In the COVID pandemic, we had many people asking us for requests for extensions. And what happened for those cases is another case would come in that didn't have, the subject didn't want an extension. So we were basically bound and determined to meet the statutory deadlines in that case, which put older cases in the queue farther behind. And that's one of the reasons that the commission has a backlog right now. And we're really hoping this bill will help us cure that backlog. As part of the notice system under the ethics law, we could receive complaints from requesters that work in the same agency or are entitled to other confidentiality protections. And we try to redact those complaints, but we believe, and the commission directed that we pursue a bill where we can actually send a notice of complaint rather than sending what a requester provides to the commission itself, but that would detail the extent of the charges, but it would also provide whistleblower protection to that requester. For example, if they send us in some notes that are handwritten and the subject figures out who wrote those notes, the whistleblower protection could not be afforded properly to that person. And throughout the bill, that notice system is carried forward. So it's at the beginning when we accept jurisdiction, we'll do a formal notice. If it goes to the review panel for a 3-person member panel to determine whether there's just and sufficient cause for it to go to the commission. Again, there's another notice at that point in time, and that will be the charges basically that 3-member panel determines to send forward. They could dismiss some. Section 47 adds a schedule for discovery, which identifies
And I thank
parties.
you for, I thank you for walking us through all the sections, but we really didn't need a section we need to just get something, if we could just finish up, give us a high level to get us to 56 or whatever, and then we'll go from there. And the conversation about amendments that were proposed, I'll be happy to have that conversation with the chair of legislative operations and elections, but we do have another proposed amendment which we need to get to this evening. So if you could get us through the end of the bill, and then we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Will do. And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for your patience. Just at the end, we do have the ability, the commission has to treat comparable situations in a comparable manner. And also on the safe harbor protections under the ethics law, the bill will now extend those safe harbor provisions to the informal advice that the executive director or the commission counsel renders to a public officer or public employee. And that is a real high level synopsis. I tried to go really fast and I appreciate your patience. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you very much. So with that, and I apologize that the chair of the committee is not here to address those other issues, but we'll be sure to get those on the record. So with that, I think I'd like to go to Mr. Powers to be able to address amendment number 777. Mr. Powers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kevin Powers, General Counsel, LCB Legal Division. As you know, the LCB Legal Division is a nonpartisan legal agency. We don't support or oppose any policy, viewpoint, or legislation. Instead, we provide the legislature and its members with objective legal analysis and advice, including analysis on the legal effects of legislation. In addition, because this piece of legislation and its proposed amendment affects the Legislative Counsel Bureau, the statute governing the LCB also authorizes the LCB officers, including the General Counsel, to provide recommendations to the legislature on that type of legislation. To keep in kind with the chair's request that we provide a high-level overview. We're going to now deal with sections 55 through 112 of the mock-up. As a quick background, Article 4, Section 6 of the Nevada Constitution provides each house with the power to prescribe the rules of its proceedings and to discipline its members. So each house has the power to discipline its members for ethical violations. And each house now has a rule, Senate Standing Rule 23 and Assembly Standing Rule 23, that provides during the session and during the interim that those two bodies, the Senate Committee on Ethics and the Assembly Committee on Ethics, can review ethics complaints under the provisions of the standing rules. Statutorily at the moment, there's a division of power where certain core legislative functions are exclusively within the jurisdiction of each house. And so if an ethics complaint involves a core legislative function, only the House can deal with that ethics complaint. For matters that are not core legislative functions, there's concurrent jurisdiction. The House can still discipline for those types of complaints, but at the same time, currently, the Commission on Ethics has jurisdiction over legislators for non-core legislative functions. Some of those non-core legislative functions are the prohibitions on entering into certain contracts with state and local governments, prohibitions on receiving an honorarium, payment for a speech, and prohibitions dealing with certain other matters that are not part of the core legislative function. What sections 55 through 112 propose is to put all jurisdiction over legislative ethics matters in the houses, and under this bill, creating a Senate Commission on Ethics, an Assembly Commission on Ethics, and when necessary to deal with legislative employees, a joint Commission on Ethics, which would be made up of legislators and other appointed members. So the overarching goal of the proposed amendment is to, again, remove legislators and legislative officers and employees from the Ethics Commission jurisdiction and provide that all ethics jurisdictions would be with the houses and these Senate, Assembly, and Joint Ethics Commission created by the proposed legislation. Really quickly then, going overview of the bill. This bill would create what is going to be called in Section 56, the Nevada Legislative Ethics Law. Section 57 sets forth the declaration of intent that the purpose of the law is to establish the highest standards of ethical behavior, prohibit any conduct that creates the appearance of impropriety, and prohibit any improper, inappropriate, or dishonorable conduct that is unbecoming to the legislative process. Sections 59 through 77 are establishing definitions. A lot of these definitions repeat what's in the existing ethics law. And what will happen in this mock-up is we've taken a lot of what's from the existing ethics law that applies to state and local government and moved it into this chapter. And again, so the prohibitions will be the same and the ethics standards will be the same, but they'll be administered by the legislative branch. So sections 78 through 82 establish the jurisdictional requirements and a statute of limitations, which is similar to the existing statute of limitations in Chapter 281A for the ethics law, and that's a 2-year statute of limitations. And it also provides that the respective commissions creating by the bill will have jurisdiction to investigate any legislative officer employee or former legislative officer employee for any violation of the ethical standards established by this legislation. Sections 83 through 89 are important. They establish statutory ethical standards for the legislative branch of government. But again, they mirror the existing ethical standards that are in the ethics law in Chapter 281A of NRS. So what you see is looks like a lot of new language. All of it consists of existing prohibitions and standards from the ethics law in 281A that now will be in Title 17 of NRS governing the legislative branch. So there's no need to go through all of these new sections because all they are is repeating all the ethics prohibitions that exist now and that I'm assuming all legislators are familiar with because we obviously provide training on those standards. Next up will be sections 90 through 102. Those establish the three bodies that I've mentioned: the Senate Commission on Ethics, the Assembly Commission on Ethics, and the Joint Commission on Ethics. The Senate Commission will have authority to hear ethics complaints against all officers and employees of the Senate. The Assembly Commission will have jurisdiction to hear ethics complaints against all officers and employees of the Assembly. And the Joint Commission will have jurisdiction to hear ethics complaint against all other legislative officers and employees, which would mostly be those officers and employees of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. The reason of creating the Joint Commission is so that one house isn't required to enforce ethics provisions against the Legislative Counsel Bureau, which is a nonpartisan agency that supports both houses. So the three members of the Senate Commission, 3 members of the Assembly Commission form the Joint Commission, so that if there's an ethics complaint against an LCB employee, then that Joint Commission would hear that ethics complaint. Turning next to sections 103 through 112, those provide for the mechanism of filing an ethics complaint, having a adjudicatory hearing if necessary before the respective commission, and also providing for remedies and penalties if a violation of the legislative ethical standards was found. And that, Madam Chair, is an overarching global view of this piece of legislation and its proposed amendment, and I'm certainly open to any questions. Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention. The ethical standards in this proposed legislation would be statutory ethical standards, but they would be in addition to the ethical standards that are in right now the joint rules. The legislative code of ethical standards are in the joint rules. This would be in addition to it. It would not supplant it. And so legislators and legislative officers and employees would be subject to the statutory provisions and to also the rule provisions dealing with ethical standards. Finally, there's a provision that if there was any conflict between the rules and the statute, the rules would take precedence. That's because under Article 4, Section 6, the rulemaking power of each house takes precedence over statutory provisions. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Powers. You made all that green language understandable. We appreciate it. So with that, committee members, are there any questions at this time on the proposed amendment that Mr. Powers just walked us through? Not seeing any questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Powers. Appreciate that. So knowing that there is, we do need to get the chair of legislative operations back if there was conceptual amendments proposed in the original committee. Mr. Powers, are you aware? Oh, I already lost him. Oh, he's back. Mr. Powers, are you aware of any of the amendments that were proposed in the policy committee on this bill? We were made notice that there were some conceptual amendments or amendments proposed at the time that were not encapsulated in this amendment. Are you aware of another amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Kevin Powers, General Counsel, LCB Legal. At the time of the hearing, the Commission on Ethics did present those 2 conceptual amendments. I don't know, I looked under the Assembly Legislative Ops site. There doesn't appear that those amendments were presented in writing, but they did present them at the hearing. I am familiar with those proposed amendments. They weren't included in the mock-up because LCB Legal wasn't provided with that direction. So I do believe that we need to consult with the chair to determine whether we are going to go forward with those proposed amendments. One other alternative as well is that if the Assembly Ways and Means wants to move the amendment, the mock-up as it is tonight, the Commission on Ethics could certainly propose those amendments on the other house, and that's another way for those amendments to continue along in the process if we need to move this bill quickly during this hearing if we don't have access to the chair of legislative operations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you much, Mr. Powers. We've worked together for a very long time. You read my mind. Because we do know this is an AB and there is a time crunch on it, and we do know that we have 2 houses for a reason. So thank you very much. With that, we'll hope the chair gets back. If she doesn't, we don't want to slow this down. There's other ways to address those conceptual amendments as they move forward. So any other questions or comments from the committee? Not seeing anyone, we will consider this the hearing on Assembly Bill 65 with the proposed amendment, so I will go ahead and open it up for hearing purposes. With that, is there anyone in the room in support of Assembly Bill 65? Seeing none, there is no one on Zoom. Is broadcast services, do we have anyone in support on the phone line for Assembly Bill 65?
If you would like to testify in support on AB 65, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 120, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Stephen with a V, Cohen as in the Assemblywoman. I am in full support as amended, subject to any future amendments that may be brought forward. With that, Madam Chair, thank you, and I yield.
Thank you. Any other callers on the phone in support?
For those of you that just joined the call, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue to testify in support on AB 65. Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you, broadcast services. Is there anyone in opposition in the room? Not seeing anyone in opposition in the room. And no one on Zoom. Is there anyone in opposition on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in opposition on AB 65, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the room in neutral? Not seeing anyone in neutral. No one on Zoom. Broadcast services, anyone in neutral?
If you would like to testify in neutral on AB 65, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 65. It's the chair's intent to move this bill this evening to make sure it gets to the floor, but we're going to investigate a little bit further to see if those amendments in the committee are actually available or if our Chair of Legislative Operations survives the second floor and makes it back to the third floor in the near future. So with that, I believe we can close the hearing on Assembly Bill 65, and we're just going to go in order. We're going to open up the hearing on Senate Bill 76. I'll invite Ms. Ebert forward. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Ebert. Welcome to the committee. So we'll go ahead and open up the hearing on Senate Bill 76. If you would give us a high-level overview, please, and then we'll go ahead and open it up to the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Carlton, Vice Chair Monroe Moreno, members of the Assembly Ways Committee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I am honored to serve as the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. To begin, just provide you a brief background regarding the department's support of boards, commissions, and councils. In February of 2016, Dear Todd Butterworth, with the Research Division of Legislative Counsel Bureau, published an issue paper that included the components of Nevada's elementary and secondary education governance structure. At that time, which was only 5 years ago, there were 10 commissions the department staffed and supported using 184.5 full-time staff members. Today, we are supporting 21 boards, commissions, and councils with 170 full-time staff. The 21 boards, commissions, and councils the department currently staffs and supports includes the Council for Family Engagement, the Committee to oversee the Charter School Audit List, the Commission on Educational Technology, the Commission on Professional Standards, the Commission on School Funding, the Council to Establish Academic Standards, the English Mastery Council, the Nevada Advisory Commission on Mentoring, the Nevada Early Childhood Advisory Council, the Nevada State Financial Literacy Advisory Council, the Special Education Advisory Council, also known as SEAC, the Statewide Council for the Coordination of the Regional Professional Training Programs, the Teachers and Leaders Council, the Title I Committee of Practitioners, the Competency-Based Network Education, ESEA Advisory Group, the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, Perkins 5 Governance Committee, the Statewide School Safety Task Force, the Teachers Recruitment and Retention Advisory Task Force, and the State Board of Education. So after taking inventory of all the boards, commissions, and councils the department supports, we conducted an analysis to determine which commissions would benefit from doing work differently. We looked at how long each has been established and why they were established, the need based upon our current context, and how the Department of Education is already doing this work. And it is important to reiterate the work that we have and the responsibility with this work is not going away. We're just thinking differently about how to do the work so we can continue to serve our students, our educators, the community members, and other stakeholders in the most efficient and productive manner. Senate Bill 76 aims to maximize the department's advisory group structure. Ideally, planning for boards, commissions, and councils includes making sure the right people with the right expertise are at the table, including diverse representation of all stakeholders, having streamlined, productive meetings as the work requires, and facilitating work with urgency to improve student outcomes and educator effectiveness. This bill references 11 of the 21 boards that we serve and support. Of those 11, we are asking that 4 remain under the current structure, 3 are repealed, and 4 are structured differently to maximize their work. The 4 that we're asking to be maintained in the current structure is the School Safety Task Force, the State Financial Literacy Advisory Council, the Nevada Commission on Mentoring, and the governing boards of the regional professional development programs. The department's request to repeal a board, commission, or council was made because of the work that the body is already conducting through stakeholder engagement. The one out of the 3 that I would provide as an example is the Commission on Educational Technology, which I actually served on over 20 years ago. That was started under Governor Bob Miller. He had, and the legislature, started and placed $60 million to be overseen to place at that point in time 1 computer in every classroom. We needed the expertise across our state to develop networking, put computers, professional development. There was a great purpose for that commission at that point in time. But our state has grown. Our school districts have great support, the department itself, and then also the collaborative work across our state. We are the only state in the nation that has every single child that has had to participate in distance education with a device and with internet connectivity. We move quickly, we know how to support educational technology in our state, and so that commission at this point in time has served its being, if you will, and we would like to move forward without that work added in this way. We also have looked at the Family and Parent Engagement Council. In that way, we're not changing any of the transparency that's required, any of the reports and the expectations for having family engagement. We know how important student success is. Number 1, engaged family engaged family. And so we as the department need to continue that work with the council, but in a different way. We also learned during the COVID-19 pandemic our connection to the regional professional development programs. We do not have a formal link between the department and the regional professional development programs at this time. And so looking at the construct, we have 3 programs that are extremely successful that provide support for our teachers, for our educators, our administrators across the state. And so what the proposal in this bill, they work right now with a statewide council, so it goes from the 3 governing councils to the statewide council. We would like to remove the statewide council and have the 3 RPDPs work directly with the department. In the development of this bill, we had countless meetings with stakeholders and advocates, the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, NAS, the Nevada Commission on Mentoring, Nevada PTA, the School Safety Task Force, Clark County Education Association, Statewide Council of Regional Professional Development, and the Statewide Council on Financial Literacy. And because of those meetings, you'll see that we had 2 different amendments to this bill. Great partnership. The additional highlights to the bill. There are no fiscal notes. The reason why this bill was pulled into finance to begin with is there's actually cost savings. What we're recommending in this bill is the removal of the end of course exams that we have as a state. They have to serve their purpose over time, but we currently, because of the Every Student Succeeds Act, are required to have a high school assessment, college and career ready. Our state has selected the ACT, and so that is administered for our high school students. And yesterday, actually, there was conversation in the Education Committee about the State Department of Education doing analysis and removing unnecessary assessments when they're duplicative so that we have instructional time in our classrooms. That is a cost savings of approximately $900,000 annually. And you cannot put a price tag, or you can put a price tag on the time that is saved for teachers to be able to now engage more deeply in instruction. Also in this bill, can't believe it was just Monday, but in the funding bill, Senate Bill 458, sections 11 and 12 in that bill actually refer to this bill, SB 76, and that's in regard to the $100,000 that currently goes to the statewide council on the Regional Professional Development Program. We have worked also too, in this bill, you'll see the alignment of the budget decisions that were made to restore the funding for the external evaluations. External evaluations are critical to the work. We internally work with our school districts. We also have a plethora of federal compliance. The department actually went through massive audits in January, believe it or not, and February. During the pandemic, but all of our Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 components, as well as special education, went through audits. But we still feel it's important to have evaluations also too. Through the pupil-centered funding plan, we're shifting from the Zoom and Victory school-based models that we know are successful to providing those funds across the entire state to all students that are English language learners, as well as our students that are defined at risk. And so those evaluations are also in this bill. I would like to, in closing, truly thank the Legislative Council. This bill is 76 pages. Mr. Asher Killian has been amazing to work with at the department. We're very thankful for his work. My team is here as well this evening, and I'm thankful for them as well. This bill, if you choose to move it forward, we're looking at transparency, agility, and accountability. We want to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our constituents with the resources that we have in the most effective way. And with that, Madam Chair, I thank you for your consideration of SB 76, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I think I have one brief question to start, and then I'm sure there are some others. You just mentioned transparency, but I've noticed in a couple places where some reporting is taken out, and I'll just mention on page 17, sub 5, line 21, we're changing a quarterly report to an annual report. I'm not going to go into exactly what the report is. I'm just curious what the thought process behind that, because I'm sure the legislators that put the quarterly in there had a reason to do it because they wanted to keep their finger on it. They wanted to know what was going on. It's better to know progress rather than learn at the end of a year that the thing jumped the track. So I'm just curious about why you would want to get rid of quarterly reporting and go to annual reporting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent Ebert, for the record, for that specific report, when you look over the last, I would say almost 5-6 years, the quarterly reports are very, very similar. They're in regard to specific construct that exists within school districts, and there's not a lot of movement once the school year starts. Those constructs within the classrooms do not change, and so basically the reports say the same thing. The work is done on the front end, and so we put that as an annual report that they must look at the class size, report that to the State Department and also to the State Board of Education. And so they appear to be duplicative, if you will, because once the year starts, it doesn't do a major shift.
Okay, thank you. With that, questions, Ms. Benitez-Thompson.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to make a comment on Section 3 because I feel like this is appropriate as I have served on the Advisory Council for Family Engagement on and off throughout the course of my legislative career, and I know that my attendance depended largely on other legislative commitments I had. So I think there was a year where like every meeting was the same day as IFC, and I remember one time trying to run back and forth between this building and the Department of Education to like keep a quorum for that meeting. And so I just wanted to say that I think that committee works really well and will work better. We don't want legislators, as well-intentioned and big-hearted as they are, to hold up the quorum on there. So I just wanted to make sure that I put on the record that I think that was it is the right direction to go in ultimately. And so I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
And if I may, Madam Majority Leader, I understand where it can be difficult to get a quorum, but whenever I see that legislators are being excluded from a conversation, I need to know the reason why they're being excluded, why they're not going to be appointed to a committee, because ultimately, whatever happens ends up with us. So I'd like to understand what the real thought process was behind the reason why legislators are being told, we don't need you anymore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I would say is that, again, at the beginning of all of this, it's to create agility in this work. And the example that I would use most recently is we had a Blue Ribbon Commission to address the needs of the pandemic. The people that I called actually to spin up, because this body was not in session, I called Speaker for nominees. He actually nominated the vice chair of this group to serve, as well as I called Assemblywoman Titus, and she asked Assemblywoman Tolles to serve. So you are absolutely right. I agree with you completely. The legislature needs to be involved in the work. So that is not the intent to not involve people. We looked, again, specifically, it's not a blanket component of removing legislators. We looked at different commissions and committees that could benefit from the ability to move quickly, be agile, meet the intent of the group. And so I'll go back to the family engagement that was just noted. All the components and the expectations of the group is still there. The quorum did change. We take, I guess I'll use another concrete example as well. Last legislative with the Financial Literacy Council, we could not get the appointments until almost 6 months later than when this body finished meeting. We would have loved to have started the work within a few months, but because of the construct that is currently in place, we couldn't start meeting until 6 months later. And so time is of the essence. You make these decisions, we want to be able to react to them. But the current construct on some of these does not make it easy for us to move the work forward.
With that, Ms. Tolles?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks for presenting this. Good to see you. I know we're all getting tired as we're getting closer to the finish line here. Section 1, kind of along that same line, I know that we're moving the reporting from every year, and this is in regards to the state board preparing a plan to improve the achievement of pupils. And currently in statute, we have that plan that's collaboratively put together every year, and instead we're changing it to every 5 years. And I was just wondering why extend it that long, particularly when in the legislature we're meeting every 2 years, and that information, that plan could be helpful.
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert, for the record. So the plan itself, as a master plan, when you set goals, and again, here too, we did research and looked at best practices for an overarching plan. All of those with the State Board of Education, and again, the other reports that we produce for this body, most of them are on a biannual basis, the ones that I had mentioned earlier with the evaluations of components. We also have our Nevada report card that is made available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for mining data and providing information. So overarching, setting the master plan and setting that vision and those goals that we're going to strive for in 5 years, and progress monitoring along the way is the thought process behind that shift.
Okay, thank you. And follow up? Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just leave it with that. Thank you.
Ms. Monroe Moreno?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. A few things, if I may, Madam Chair. Since the introduction of this bill in the Senate site, I don't know about anyone else's phone, but I know my phone and emails have been blowing up with community members afraid of with so much change going on with the changes we're making with the funding structure of what we're doing with, it's a huge thing. But then making changes with the commissions that they felt that they had a voice on is an issue. But the biggest call that I've gotten concerned the mentoring commission, and it's in section 4.5, subsection 7, the deletion of the support for the commission. Why was that stricken out? What exactly are the supports that are being removed? Could you let us know that?
Thank you for the question, Superintendent Ebert, for the record. So every commission that the State Department supports first starts with, the gathering of all the members, making sure that they understand the constructs. We talked about ethics just a little bit ago, all of those components, making sure that we have the meetings posted, minutes, all of those components that are there. And so in this instance, actually, let me back up. When I returned home 2 years ago, the bill moving forward for NACOM, for the Commission on Mentoring. Assemblyman Thompson pulled me into his office and said, we need to get this going. It hasn't been moving in the right direction. I worked with the staff and found out that it was a staffing issue, as I noted. And so at that point in time, we tried to add staff, getting it through a bill. We could not. And so this commission was never staffed. And still hasn't. I'm using actually I've been able to marry federal funds, but can only use a certain portion before being out of compliance. So it's truly that we don't have the staff to support properly. Mentoring is a massive undertaking if you're going to do it right. And so this is the only place in statute where the Nevada Commission on Mentoring exists. If it had been removed as initially proposed, it would not exist, and that's not the intent. So having it exist, but knowing that to do it right, we don't have the staff to do it, is why it was removed.
Follow-up? Well, thank you for the honesty in answering the question. Sad to hear that we don't have the staff for that, so perhaps that's where we need to be adding staff to. As we're looking at all the changes, like I said early, as we look at all the changes that we're going through with our education system right now, as we're transitioning into this new funding structure for education, I'm not comfortable, and I'm not sure how the other members are. I'm not comfortable in having less reporting. I want to make sure that the department has the staffing that they need to properly address the commissions that we have created. So if you have not had the staffing, and that was the resource that you needed, I apologize for that, and I'll be fighting to help you get that. But the less reporting that's in the bill is concerning to me. I was able to make it to a few of those blue ribbon meetings, not all of them, because of conflicts with other meetings. But I know that legislators do want to be involved, so I want to make sure that we are as involved as possible. And as we go through this, because we're going to have to report back to our constituents about the changes that were made. So keeping us involved is key. The reporting, not just to us, but we're going to have to report back to our constituents is key, and they're your constituents as well. And making sure that the community is involved is important to me, Madam Chair, and making sure that you have the staffing that you need, especially for the mentoring commission, because that's where I'm getting calls from my community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a quick money question, since this is, after all, a money committee. Section 13, I'm curious about that process. In Section 13, it says the department shall, and then you strike out, in consultation with the commission, adopt regulations to establish a program where school districts and charter schools may apply to the department for money from the trust fund. So in the past, there was some oversight or consultation with the Education Commission on how this money should be dispensed. And now the department is only the ones that decide how the department is going to spend the money. Is there any oversight on that? Who's going to? I'm just curious about where that transparency is going to be.
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert, for the to respond. In that instance, and I would have to double check, and maybe my staff knows off the top of their head, I don't believe there are not any funds there, and there hasn't been in over a decade. That being said, I do agree with you that oversight for anyone needs to happen at all points in time. That was removed because we are requesting that the Commission on Educational Technology be removed. So
So is that, follow, Madam Chair? So I'm just wondering if that no longer exists, is that trust fund for educational technology, if that's going to go away, is that money going to be moved into the general fund for, I mean, where's that?
no,
Is
so
that
the-
an oversight there, or is?
excuse me, Superintendent Ebert, for the record. So the fund is not going away. It's there if people would like to contribute to the fund. We always would like to have additional funds. But the shift is moving because the commission itself would no longer exist. And so that's where we put the department in its place.
Thank you, and maybe if it's too late at night to really go in that, but it'd be interesting to see what the original charter or of that trust, what was the original mandate when that trust was created, who was in charge of that trust, and how this process then would work. And I don't know, I mean, not something I'm sure we could find out at some other time, what the obligations of that trust fund was initially.
I'd be more than happy to do that research. I do know it was part of NARA back in the late 90s, so.
Other committee members at this time? Not seeing any. I do have concerns with Section 1. We're currently, a plan is to be submitted on the achievement of pupils enrolled in public schools, and I'm not sure if that's because we have the commission now, but the bill instead is going to change that to that plan being submitted every 5 years instead of every 1 year. That means 2 whole legislative sessions will go by before the legislature gets an update on the plan to improve achievement. So if that could be addressed, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent Ebert, for the record. So, and I hear you, what you're saying. The intent is not for you not to have the information. The intent is to set the goals for the 5 years. And then for us to progress monitor those goals, that we actually hold ourselves accountable at every single board meeting with the State Board of Education and report on specifically those goals. That's a process we're currently working on with the new state board in place, and all of that information will be publicly available. I hear you indicating the desire to have specific reports, and
Well, we don't want to have to subpoena you, and I've done that before, so I just don't want to have to do it again. I think it's important that the legislature gets the information that we need, and when you're talking about every 5 years, that's 2 sessions that go by. I mean, depending upon how it's staggered, and ultimately, we have the responsibility to fund education, so we ultimately have the responsibility to monitor how that achievement happens. So to me, that's the most concerning thing is, yes, the board does have that responsibility, but there's been a bit of a lack of communication, and we just want to make sure that that communication stays, and if it's not in statute, it doesn't seem like it'll keep going on. So that is a concern, because ultimately, we're the ones who get left, we're the ones that get the responsibility and are on the accountability for making sure that it's funded correctly, and if we don't have the data, we need to make the decisions. And if we're not going to get it every year, it's going to be every 5 years. I won't be here, but how are the folks that are sitting in these chairs supposed to make decisions if there's no communication between the board and the legislature on the progress of achievement in the schools?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, thank you. So I think it's the way that it's worded with the intent of best practices for developing strategic plans. So it is not the intent to, the intent is to make sure you have information to be able to make those decisions. I think the way we have it worded, thinking strategically about how those are developed, we can go back and revisit that.
And without a statutory reporting component, we would have to request it every time. And we've been down this road with other agencies and directors and had to fight to get information. So I don't want to see that happen with education when we already have a current system in place that allows for us to have that information and not have to go digging for it in the future. So with that, committee members, are there any other questions at this time? There's a couple other components in here, but I don't want to take the time. At this time, I can take those questions offline, but I want to make sure other committee members have a chance to ask questions. Not seeing any at this time. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Ebert. We appreciate it. So with that, this is the hearing for SB 76. I'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone in the room in support of SB 76? Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Jim Frazee, and I have the honor of being Vice President of the Clark County Education Association. The Clark County Education Association, CCEA, represents more than 18,000 licensed employees in the Clark County School District. We are the largest independent education association in the country. We are the exclusive bargaining unit for the Clark County School District, which is the 5th largest in the country. And we promote and engage in bipartisan advocacy in advancing public education in Nevada. CCEA would like to voice our support for Senate Bill 76 as amended. With the change in structure of the Teacher Leaders Council, educators who are part of our bargaining unit will be represented in an equitable manner. CCEA thanks Deputy Superintendent Gonzalez and Superintendent Ebert for their collaboration on the bill, and we look forward to continue to develop this relationship with the department, this legislature, the governor, mining and gaming to ensure that we adequately fund education in Nevada. Lastly, CCEA would like to thank this committee for your hard work on the pupil-centered funding plan and the addition of $500 million. I thank you for your time on a very long day.
Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Committee Chairwoman Carlton and committee members. My name is Dr. Brenda Pearson, representing the Clark County Education Association. CCA would like to voice our support for Senate Bill 76. As citizens of Nevada have witnessed over the last year, it is important that our K-12 education system be both responsive to emerging needs and efficient in carrying forth needed adjustments. CCA believes that the removal of committees that are duplicative will increase the department's responsiveness to addressing the needs of our students and our educators. CCA believes that as amended, the importance of educator representation of the largest employee organization of the state on the Teachers and Leaders Council will be made a priority in Nevada. Additionally, CCA thanks the department and for their continued support and partnership in bringing this amended language to fruition. CCA looks forward to the implementation of this bill, and we thank this committee for their hard work this legislative session. Most importantly, we thank this committee for the historic investment in education that has taken place, and we are committed to continue our work with the legislature, leadership, the governor, mining, and gaming to ensure that the people-centered funding plan receives funding aligned with the Commission on School Funding's recommendations. Thank you again for your hard work. Our members and students greatly appreciate your investment in the K-12 education system. Thank you.
Next, please.
Thank you, Chairman Carlton and committee members. My name is Kenny Belknap. I am the acting secretary for the CCEA Executive Board, and I just want to echo some of the words spoken by the Vice President and Dr. Pearson. We at CCA, we work collaboratively across the board, and we greatly appreciate the investment that this body is making in our education system. $500 million is going to make a significant impact on the experience of our students in our classrooms. This bill as well, SB 76, removing the end-of-course exams, will not only improve our students' experience, it will also allow our educators to spend more time working with our students on their mental health, ensuring and building those connections and relationships that we also desperately missed over this last school year. So I just wanted to say thank you once again, and the work that this body is doing this session cannot be understated, and this impact that you are making in the lives of our children and the experiences of our educators and students in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And typically, we don't have 3 folks from the same organization come forward, so if in the future you guys could pick one representative to come forward, we would appreciate it to make your statement. Thank you. Anyone else in the room in support? Seeing none, no one on Zoom. On the phone lines, do we have anyone in support?
If you would like to testify in support on SB 76, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 305. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Carl Catarata, Chairman of the Nevada Commission on Mentoring. I just wanted to provide a comment today that the Nevada Commission on Mentoring is in support of the friendly amendment made in the Senate when it comes to making sure that the Nevada Commission on Mentoring is intact with SB 76. We would like to thank Superintendent Ebert for her leadership and work in working with our commission. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 880. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller 880, please press star 6 to unmute.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Jason Trevino, and I'm the chair of the State School Safety Task Force. And I'd just like to say that the task force is very thankful for NDE and staff for working with us, in particular on this bill. And I appreciate them hearing our concerns with the original bill and the way it was written, and ultimately adding the last amendment that was introduced that restored the School Safety Task Force back to its original language. So at this time, we are in support of this bill, and I'd just like to say thank you for all of your hard work on it.
Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 120. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Stephen with a V. Cohen as in the Assemblywoman. Ditto. And C496 up next. With that, Madam Chair, thank you, and I yield.
Next caller, please.
Chair, that was the last caller we had in support.
Thank you very much, Broadcast Services. Do we have anyone in neutral in the room? Not seeing anyone in the room. No one on Zoom. Do we have any neutral on the phone lines?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 76, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral on the line.
With that, I believe the testimony is closed. Dr. Ebert, did you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for hearing the bill, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 76. And we will open up the hearing on SB 96. I believe I have Senator Orenshaw here. Senator, please proceed.
Good evening, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. James Orenshaw, State Senate District 21. And with your permission, Chair Carlton, I'd like to tag in one of your committee members. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson has been unbelievably helpful on this bill. And I can't thank her enough for her help. The reason I introduced this bill is last session I introduced Senate Bill 174 because I believe that children on Medicaid were not getting the same opportunity at treatment if they were on the autism spectrum as kids who had private insurance. And in Senate Bill 174 last session, I sought a rate increase for the registered behavioral therapists, the RBTs, who work with kids on Medicaid to $48 an hour. Unfortunately, that didn't survive the Senate Finance Committee. But what did survive was a request for an audit of autism services provided to children in the state, both on Medicaid and covered by private insurance and through the ATAP program. About a year ago, before the results of the audit came out,
Senator Orenshaw, I have to stop you for a moment. Let's take a break for just a second here. I believe I probably skipped the opposition on the last bill, is what I'm being told. So we're going to do a do-over.
I thought I
Apparently,
bored you to death already, Madam Chair.
No, Senator, believe me, I'm very interested in what you have to say. But unfortunately, I guess I went from support to neutral, and I guess I skipped opposition. Did I? Okay, well then, I've been caught red-handed. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to reopen the hearing on SB 76, and I shouldn't be doing these things at 9:30 at night on a Friday night. So with that, thank you for folks catching me. And we will go ahead and reopen the hearing on SB 76, and I will open it up for opposition. Opposition in the room.
Madam Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, in opposition to SB 76. We'll try to be very brief. We did oppose the bill in the Senate Education Committee. We have an exhibit that you can review. I will point out a couple of outstanding issues. One, the consolidation of, we believe, too many councils and commissions within education that provide opportunities for input. I'll mention the council to establish academic standards. We're glad that they restored the RPDPs and the mentoring commission, but taking away supports from the mentoring commission is difficult. And then finally, on the class size issue and the reporting from quarterly to annually, that quarterly reporting gives an opportunity at the State Board of Education for board members there and the public to engage on that issue, which we have done. And then finally, NSEA has submitted an amendment for your consideration if you choose to move forward. The amendment basically would restore the fourth appointment by NSEA to the Teachers and Leaders Council. We've been an active participant there from the beginning. We're responsible for putting forward names that represent a geographic diversity of the state, and those four appointments allow us to do the state justice. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Mr. Daly, and I apologize for that.
All good. Thank you.
Very much. So with that, other folks in opposition in the room? Seeing none, there is no one on Zoom. Opposition on the phone lines, please. And again, my apologies. Broadcast services, open it up for opposition to 76, please.
Pardon me, here I am. If you'd like to testify in opposition to SB 76, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition.
Thank you very much. So with that, we've now taken a long way around, but we've completed our mission on SB 76. I will go ahead and close the hearing again on SB 76. And Senator Orenshaw, I apologize. Please come back to the table. Majority Leader, thank you very much. We will open up the hearing on SB 96. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Chair. James Orenshaw, State Senate District 21. And just to paraphrase, last session I sponsored Senate Bill 174. I sought a rate increase for children on Medicaid who are receiving services because they're on the spectrum. That part of the bill got amended out, but an audit of services to children in the state on the spectrum survived. About a year ago, with the work I do in my normal life and what I see with kids not getting services, not getting treatment, I felt the need was still there, so I requested a bill on a rate increase again. And fast forward 6 months when the audit came out, which is probably one of the most thorough audits I've seen the LCB Audit Division ever put together, and I thank them for their thoroughness and working so hard on this audit. I think a lot of what I and many other activists and parents believed really, I think, was proven here by this audit in terms of the shortcomings of what we're doing serving children who don't have private insurance in the state who are on the spectrum. So Senate Bill 96 started out as a request to move up to a $48 an hour rate increase from where we are now, which is quite low. And then in the Assembly, Majority Leader Benitez Thompson provided an amendment and was just tremendous on the bill. And now I believe it is something that will really help try to get services to those children on Medicaid, try to make sure that we have a rate that will be comparable, and try to make sure that some of the deficiencies in the audit are also addressed. So with your permission, may I turn it over to Majority Leader Benitez Thompson, then I'm happy to answer any questions.
And thank you very much, Senator. We'll go to the Majority Leader. Did you have anyone else you wish to present, or the folks on Zoom here as backup?
With your indulgence, I have my colleague, Senator Dondero Loop. I have Bailey Bordelin from Legal Aid Center, who both worked with me tremendously. I have Commissioner Julie Ostrovsky from the Commission on Autism Spectrum Disorders. And Dwayne Young is here from the agency to, I think, provide a lot of information about the fiscal notes. And we'll all try to be brief, given the lateness of the hour.
And thank you all very much. So when we do this, we would like everyone to be as brief as possible. You've got a pretty friendly audience here, so I think we can just assume that. So with that, Majority Leader.
Thank you so much, Chair of Ways and Means Committee, for hearing this. I'm here today as the I guess still, for the moment, the present vice chair for the audit committee of the Legislative Commission. And so we heard this audit in January, became public just before coming into session. Madam Chairwoman, as a member of that audit, you sat through this as well. And so the audit gave us lots of information. It did analysis of the fiscal note. It did analysis of payments and expenditures for all the different types of programs from 2016 forward. On the Senate side, the fiscal note that we got was coming from the Medicaid side for the autistic service programs. In this, here what you see presented today is coming from ADSD, Aging and Disability Services Division, for the ATAP program with their cost for this particular piece. So you're going to see that they believe it's going to be $454,000 in fiscal year 21-22, and then about $900,000 in fiscal year 22-23, and then an ongoing 1.8 effect on future biennia. And so a couple things that we want to keep in mind here, that the bill overall enacts a number of pieces and recommendations from the audit. So I imagine what we will see, what I believe that we will see, is that with a lot of the cleanup work that we're doing on billing, on the collection of data from the managed care organizations regarding claims, and some of the new guardrails that we're putting in around providers, I imagine that we're probably actually going to end up in a pretty good place. We have been back and forth about what this rate needs to be for 4 to 5 sessions. Ms. Bordelin could probably tell you more specifically, but I feel like every session we come in and we have this back and forth about what the rate might be. Just as a refresher, there are 3 different types of providers in this world. 2 of them are, the analysis found, are comparable to market rates. It's one particular kind of provider, the RBT provider, that it was substantially lower than commercial market rates. And because the Medicaid rate and the state rate was substantially lower, that population just isn't getting access and isn't being seen, and it's a huge parity issue. So I think that we take a run at this. We can come back and look in 2 years to see if this is our best thinking with audits and studies. Are we getting it right? But I think that we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bordelin.
Bailey Bordelin for the record. I just want to thank the 3 legislators that have been working so hard to get us here, but in the for brevity, I'm just here to answer questions should you have any.
Thank you very much. So with that, Ms. Ostrowski, did you have anything that you'd like to add at this time?
Julia Ostrowski, Commissioner with the Nevada Commission on Autism Spectrum Disorders. Not at this time. I'm here to answer questions. I submitted testimony. The Commission submitted a letter in support of SB 96. It is our responsibility to monitor Medicaid rates and work with ATAP, and we believe it's time for this rate increase and that we can make it work with the agencies we work with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll consider your remarks and support and make sure they're noted that way for the committee minutes. So with that, committee members, are there any questions of the majority leader and/or Senator Orenshaw before we move forward? Mr. Levitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I heard you talk about children a lot, and so does this extend beyond when they're a child? Because I have a relative that he's in his 20s now, but still needs services beyond 18 years old or however it's defined. So when do these services end?
Bailey Bordelin for the record. I believe that these, the funding mechanisms, what we're looking at here before, is specific to children, but Dwayne Young could speak to the specifics of the program.
Mr. Young and/or Ms. Ostrowski, who would ever like to answer it. Mr. Young.
Deputy Administrator Dwayne Young for the record. Madam Chair, through you to Assemblyman Levitt. The autism services covered by Medicaid are only to age 21. And they're covered under what we call EPSDT, Early Periodic Screening, Diagnosis, and Treatment, that covers those through age 21.
And I believe Mr. Levitt's follow-up question is going to be, are there services for folks over 21 and how do they access them?
Again, Dwayne Young, Deputy Administrator for the record. No, those adults over the age of 21 are diverted to other rehabilitative behavioral health services or long-term services and supports depending upon their need and their progression and diagnosis. But ABA is not reimbursed by Medicaid for those over 21.
And Bailey Bordelin for the record. If I could add to that, these services are really targeted for early intervention, and that's a huge part of the reason that we are seeking this access, because the rates have created wait lists, and kids have languished on those wait lists for a very long time. And what we know from the science and the research behind this specific type of treatment is that the earlier we can access kids, the more successful they will be later in life. And so it's very, very key in this particular area to do early intervention. And we believe that this rate increase will allow kids to access it earlier so that they are able to successfully transition into adulthood without needing those services.
Thank you very much. Other questions from the committee at this time? Not seeing any other questions. Thank you all very much. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and open it up in support, and we've already had Ms. Ostrowski's comments. So are there any folks in the room? Senator, go ahead, come forward. Like to testify in support?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Committee. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record, and I have to say thank you, Madam Chair. You've been amazing for 24 years, and we're going to miss you. Thank you for all you've done for the state of Nevada. So with that being said, I just think it's really important, and that's why I left my finance committee to come up here and say there is absolutely nothing that I can think of that in my lifetime as an educator, as a parent, as a community member, that if we don't do it earlier with children, they don't succeed better. And it doesn't matter what it is. Reading, autism services, dental care, I don't care what it is. If we do things earlier with children, it's better for them. And this is one of those things that is just really important. And it's important enough that I wanted to make sure that went on the record. So thank you very much, Madam Chair and Committee, and thank you for all you're doing at this late hour.
Thank you. Are you guys still in finance?
Sure is.
Okay.
Well, I'll excuse myself.
Please do. Got a bunch of bills down there on that floor. So. Thank you. So with that, late Friday night humor. The popcorn will be sold out in the lobby. So with that, is there anyone else in the room in support of the bill? Seeing no one in support, anyone else on Zoom in support? Not seeing anyone on Zoom wishing to be recognized. Broadcast services, do we have folks on the phone line in support? And if so, I would ask you to please keep it to 2 minutes, and we'll go forward from there. I know this is a very passionate issue, and I'm sure there's a lot of calls, and we want to take as many as we can in the short amount of time we have. So broadcast services.
If you would like to testify in support on SB 96, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 120, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller 120, I think your phone may be on mute. You're unmuted on our end.
Yeah. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My apologies. It's late Friday night, and donut orders will be taken on this floor. With your permission, Madam Chair, may I defer to one of our Q folks that's testifying from Europe and resume my testimony later?
Mr. Cohen, please go ahead and testify now. Thank you.
Ditto. With that, Madam Chair, thank you, and I yield.
Thank you. With that, the next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 653, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, or sorry, good evening, Madam Chair Carlton. This is Dora Martinez, CRAMARTINEZ, and I want to ditto what Woman Don Darrell Loop said. You are a true MVP, and I appreciate all you do, and we do support SB 96. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 109, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller 109, please press star 6 to unmute.
My name is Molly Halligan, MOLLYHALLIGAN. I am in full support of this bill. I am a provider here in Las Vegas, and I've been a behavior analyst here in the state for about 20 years. Children in the state are going without services at an early age. Because this rate is so low, commercial providers are also matching this rate, which is impacting services at a global level. There are thousands of children that are not getting services, and the lack of services at this early age is impacting the way that they're going to develop later and causing a much greater financial burden to the state. I really hope that the legislators will consider this bill and ensure that this bill passes so that we can get these services provided to these children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 470, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Randy Gabe, Gabe, and I'm a board member for the Grant Gift Autism Foundation, which is in partnership with UNLV Medicine to operate the Ackerman Autism Center, which is an ATAP provider. I'm speaking in support of SB 96, and given the lateness of the hour, I will be very brief. I wanted to inform the committee that as a ATAP provider for these RBT services, that we have thousands of families on our wait list, thousands of families, and that's just in Southern Nevada. There are more statewide. Increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate for the RBT services will help us make a big dent in that wait list and allow more children to be seen. And as one of the folks testifying mentioned, that early intervention is the key. So if you have somebody on a wait list, they are not getting the early intervention that they need to help them to become mainstream members of society. And with that, I thank you, Madam Chair, for working so late into the evening, and committee members.
Thank you. The next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 916, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Lenise Crick. That's LENISEKRYK.
I'd like to first say thank you to Madam Chair for sponsoring SB 96. It's imperative and life-changing for children with autism to receive ABA, and SB 96 would allow access to services. The wage for an RBT has significantly increased, with experienced RBTs receiving between $25 and $27 per hour, while the Medicaid reimbursement rate in Nevada has remained stagnant, being one of the lowest in the nation. We've been asking legislators for 6 years to increase, and this rate increase is long overdue. The low rate is devastating for the state of Nevada as the providers servicing children with Medicaid and ACAB dwindle. The wait lists are astronomical, with some children waiting years, costing them time that they simply do not have. The current requested rate would allow children on wait lists to begin services, as well as children receiving minimal services, more evidence-based levels of treatment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 443. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Janelle Saunders, JANELLESAUNDERS, and I am a BCBA here in the state of Nevada, and I am fully in support of SB 96 in order to improve access to critical services for children with autism in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 284. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Yesenia Gonzalez, YESENIA GONZALES. Good evening, Madam Chair Carlton and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I am a member and also the assistant of our director and founder of Azul Blue United by Autism, a nonprofit organization serving our community for over 10 years. I come to you representing the many who are on the spectrum of the community, and also as a mother of an amazing son who also has autism. Many do not know how important it is when a child receives services outside of school, nor how it plays a key role in our special needs child's education and development. This can be whether it's using ABA, applied behavioral analysis, which help with social skills, communication, reading, and academics, as well as adaptive learning skills, such as fine motor dexterity, hygiene, grooming, domestic capabilities, punctuality, and job competence. I apologize in advance, I do have a speech impairment, or occupational therapy to help them write better. Speech therapy to help them to respond to verbal prompts or social cues. The list goes on. Many have had these and many other services cut back, and we cannot allow that to continue. My son and myself personally have suffered from the cutbacks in hours or termination in these dire services due to the very limited availability of providers. My son has regressed immensely after years of his hard work. In 2019, we encountered this problem, and his therapist wouldn't stop apologizing and saying, "It's not us, it's Medicaid." Ironically, the same happened with my services later that same year. I have slowly reduced even more so. I have been on a waiting list also for my son for ABA for 3 years now, and that is unacceptable. The pandemic caused many like my child to regress, and behaviors affect many at school and at home. Parents taking courses to be RBTs to help their children, but not many have the means or ways of doing this also. The tools are there, but unattainable due to the lack of there not being enough provided in our state. This is also a problem for those who are limited in English proficiency, who do not know that they can turn for help for their child in need of vital services, and also families with limited to no income. In fact, this need has not discriminated against even those with higher income, as they themselves have been affected. I implore you, as a mother of a special needs child whom I spend my whole life advocating tirelessly for, and also for those in my community, I plead with you to pass this bill for my son's sake and the sake of many others like him who have been impacted by this. I thank you all for allowing me to share my testimony with you. Myself and Sulu Blue United by Autism fully support Senate Bill 96. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for waiting for us to be here this evening. We appreciate it. The next caller, please.
For those of you that have just joined the call, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute.
Madam Chair and committee members, for the record, my name is Jan Crandy. I am the former chair of the Nevada Commission on Autism. I appreciate the passion SB 96 has been given, and I am so grateful to the sponsors and co-sponsors. I do believe SB 96, with its most recent amendment, is the solution we've needed to address access barriers. When I testified in 2016, I indicated Nevada would need approximately 3,200 RBTs to serve all of Medicaid and ATAP children. The recent audit indicated there were only 598 providers serving Medicaid children. Real access can only happen when there is sufficient provider capacity. This rate will bring providers to Nevada, and it is the encouragement providers need to enroll and grow their businesses to deliver sufficient weekly treatment hours. More provider companies in Nevada is good for everyone and every child. Madam Chair, knowing this is your last session makes me sad. I want to express my gratitude to you especially. I know you have been there for the autism community and Nevada in a huge way. We are going to miss you. I wish you rest and grand adventures in your retirement. Thank you for listening and for voting for SB 96. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crandy, and thank you for all your advocacy for these children for all these years. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Next caller, please, and I believe we just have a couple callers left on the line, so we'll take a couple more and then we'll go from there. The next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 715. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is John Paul Saunders. That's Jon, capital Paul, last name Saunders. Saunders. That was my mom, who was just on, Jan Crandy. My little sister is Megan Crandy. And I just want to express nothing but gratitude to all the people that worked so hard on this bill. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sleep well tonight. And I know it's late, so good night.
Thank you very much, and I hope you and your sister are doing well. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 224. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Michelle Tombari, Michelle I'll be short. I just want to let you know I do support SB 96. And as a parent of a recovered child, I know this life-changing ABA therapy for autism needs to be accessible for all children in Nevada, not just the ones with good health insurance or the ones in wealthy families. SB 96 will help increase the number of providers so that improvement and possible recovery can become a reality for children whose families rely on Medicaid or ATAP. Money spent at an early age will reduce or eliminate the millions of dollars necessary for each child's long-term care and also reward the state with a successful tax-paying citizen. My son is proof of this. SB 96 is morally and fiscally the right thing to do. Thank you for all your past and future support for families affected by autism. Please approve SB 96. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 274. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair Carlton and committee members. My name is Ashlyn Fritz, ASHLYN I'd like to express my support for Senate Bill 96. I'd like to thank the senator for bringing his leadership to help children enrolled in Medicaid experience the same services for autism that their counterparts with private insurance experience without significant barriers. Please support SB 96. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll take one more if there is someone available, and then after that, we'll ask everyone to please send in their comments. It is 10 p.m., and we do need to wrap up the committee meeting because we still have floor work to do today. So with that, if there's another caller?
Chair, that was the last caller in the line.
Good timing. So with that, that was support. Got to walk myself through this evening. The next one would be opposition. So is there anyone in the room in opposition to SB 96? Not seeing anyone in the room. No one on Zoom. Is there anyone on the phone line in opposition to SB 96?
If you would like to testify in opposition to SB 96, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers on the line in opposition.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in neutral in the room? Not seeing anyone come forward. No one neutral in Zoom. Is there anyone in neutral on the phone line?
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 96, please press
Mr.
star
Young,
9 now to take your place in the queue.
Broadcast Services, I missed the raised hand for Mr. Young. Mr. Young, would you like to testify, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Committee. Dwayne Young, Deputy Administrator for the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy for the record. I did just want to make a clarification on the record. When we discussed this at the Senate, the division had not time to accurately calculate the fiscal note based on the Amendment 2. And so there is a $2.9 million general fund impact. This was appropriated on the Senate side. However, that appropriation is $107,339 short. And so we would need an appropriation to make that up for meet this note. And I also just wanted to put on the record that the effect on future biennium is $20 million total computable with a $7 million state general fund impact on the next biennium. Thank you.
Did you get it all? Mr. Young, would you repeat the number again for staff so we can make sure as we move forward we've got the right number?
Yes. The appropriation is short $107,339.
107. You broke up again. 107,000.
$339.
107,339. Okay.
Yes, and I believe we have sent to Ms. Hoffman the updated documents which clarify all of this as well as the impact on the future biennium.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Young. So with that, we can go to the phone lines. Is there anyone on the phone lines in neutral? That's not the kind of neutral we want to hear, but we'll deal with it. It's okay. I was hoping the numbers would go the other way. Anyone on the phone line?
If you'd like to testify in neutral on SB 96, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and invite Senator back. Ms. Bordelon, if there's any closing comments, we did receive an unsolicited fiscal note, which will have to be addressed, and it's a little over $454,000 in fiscal year 22 and a little over $909,000 in fiscal year 23. So the price tag went up a little bit. We're going to have some conversations, and we'll go from there. So with that, if you have any, we have to have a complete record. So any closing comments, Senator?
Chair Carlton, in 2009, Senator Maggie Carlton and Assemblywoman Don Darrell Loop co-sponsored Assembly Bill 162 with me.
I remember.
And everyone told us it'll never happen. Our GOP governor will never sign it even if you get it passed. But you were a staunch ally as chair of the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, and we got it through. And Governor Gibbons waited, and we all thought we'd get a veto message after we adjourned, but he signed it, and that mandated private insurance for kids on the spectrum. And thank you for being such a champion then. Thank you for co-sponsoring Senate Bill 96. I know the price tag is high, but I think that it will make a huge difference in the lives of children on Medicaid to try to get these services. And congratulations on your retirement. Certainly I'll miss you very much, and thank you for everything you've done for so many people, not just the kids on the
You're
spectrum.
welcome, Senator, and if you hadn't chased me around the building for about 3 days, who knows what might have happened. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You couldn't dodge him. He was everywhere. Ms. Bordelon, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Bailey Bordelon, for the record, representing the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. I did want to, you beat me to it, mention that there was a new fiscal note on the reprint and that we do feel that is appropriate and necessary and important to fund the ATAP program as well. So that there is parity for all of these kids trying to access services. And I know that it's a crazy session to ask for money, and so I really want to thank you and the 3 legislators that have been helping muscle this through, because we have really tried everything, and this is the only solution. So we wouldn't ask for money if we didn't really need it for these kids, but it's going to really change their lives. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. With that, we will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 96. And thank you to all of our stalwarts that have been with us all day. You were waiting for your bills. This is going to be our last bill for the evening. It is 10 o'clock, and we do need to get some floor work done yet. So those 3 bills that are left are 274, 310, and 455. When you see the bills on the agenda, they will be in numerical order, but I will bump those 3 to the top tomorrow when we roll them over and move forward from there. So just wanted to let you know, we'll put them towards the top tomorrow. But we do need to address AB 65, I believe, before we close out today. So give us just a moment. For Ms. Kaufman, Mr. Leiser, and the Chair of Legislative Operations, we have Mr. Powers back on Zoom. So give us a moment and we'll address AB 65. And SB 390. Thank you very much, Mr. Leiser. Sorry, didn't mean to give you a heart attack. I'm going to put you on my little sticky right now, so you'll be fine. So those 4 bills will be addressed at the top of the morning. So with that, I believe we have to address AB 65 this evening and get it out so that we can get the amendment drafted in time and keep this moving. So the committee members will go ahead and take you back to the conversation around AB 65. We had the presentation from the Ethics Commission. Mr. Powers walked us through the amendment. The Ethics Commission had mentioned the other conceptual amendments that had been addressed in the committee. The Chair of Legislative Operations is back with us right now. So, Chair, if you'd like to go ahead and address those conceptual amendments and how you would like to proceed, and we will go from there. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. What the conceptual amendments do to Assembly Bill 65 is it creates a new chapter in Title 17 of the Nevada Revised Statutes for ethics provisions related to the legislative branch of government. 3 of the main things that it does under that is, 1, it creates a Senate Commission on Ethics.
Madam Chair, we had gone through that particular amendment. We were talking about the proposed amendments during the committee hearing that it had come from the commission itself. From the committee itself? No, from the commission. from the Ethics Commission had proposed some small amendments at the actual, at the committee level. I think I may have them here. So if I understand correctly, it was Section 8.2, specify a duty to cooperate doesn't apply to attorneys representing parties involved in that section. Section 22.2, remove the requirement that the executive director be a licensed attorney and instead make it a preferred qualification. And the third proposed amendment was Section 27.3, place conferees under seal. And do I have the correct information?
Yes, Chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. So those particular amendments would be encapsulated in moving this forward. Hold on a second, because Ways and Means is doing way too many amendments, so I've got to make sure I do this right. So committee members, there would be two proposed amendments, the conceptual amendments, which we just discussed, that were discussed at the policy committee hearing level. The second proposed amendment would be the one that Mr. Powers walked us through Amendment 777 to AB 65. Are there any questions from the committee members at this time? Not seeing any questions. So this was we are working from a first reprint, so this would be the two amendments as an amend and do pass as amended. Comments? Hearing none, I'll take a motion from Ms. Monroe Moreno, a second from Speaker Frierson. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify. Oh, Mr. Roberts, I'm sorry.
My apologies, I wasn't quick enough. Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't get a chance to really digest the tail end of this amendment. I have concerns about the insular nature of us policing ourselves completely without any outside oversight. So I'll be a yes to get out of the committee, but I have some concerns, and I may change my vote on the floor, and I'll let you know.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure there's some folks who'd be happy to have that conversation with you to give you some of the history and the reason why we're moving in that direction. So, comments made. So with that, motion in a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. We do thank you, Mr. Powers, very much for being here with us this evening. We appreciate you. It's been a long time since we served in Commerce and Labor together, so thanks. So with that, we'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on the phone line, broadcast services?
If you would like to make public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one on the line to make public comment.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, we can go ahead and adjourn, and then we'll wait for Majority Leader to let us know when we're ready to go back to floor. And since we are here so late, committee will start at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We need to let the staff have some time to figure out which direction we're going in here. So we all need a little bit of time before tomorrow morning. So with that, in about 11 hours, we'll be back. Okay, we're adjourned.